Back on the record, this is the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12 CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with Mr. King and Ms. Spengler, and the prosecution is represented by Mr. Orman, Ms. Pearson, and Ms. Tish McGuire. We are outside the presence of the jury. We called counsel because there's another question from the jury. Actually, we called counsel because there was another question from the jury. After we called the attorneys, the jury submitted another question, so that there are two questions. And I have a proposed response to each. The first question, which I have marked as deliberations question number 3, reads as follows. Instruction 22 feels informative rather than instructional. What instruction are we to take from it? And the proposed response is as follows. Dear members of the jury, this is in response to your question about instruction 22, which reads as follows. Instruction 22 feels informative rather than instructional. What instruction are we to take from it? Instruction 22 is not an instruction of law. Rather, it informs you about the defendant's theory of the case. The other question I have marked as deliberations question number 4, and it reads as follows. Were the reports from Dr. Reed, Dr. Metzner, Dr. Woodcock, and Dr. Gurr admitted into evidence? Same question for the notes. And the proposed response that I have drafted reads as follows. Dear members of the jury, this is in response to your question about whether the reports and notes of Drs. Reed, Metzner, Woodcock, and Gurr were admitted into evidence. The reports and notes of these witnesses were not admitted into evidence. With the exception of live ammunition, you have all the exhibits that were admitted into evidence. Could you please distribute copies of the questions and the proposed responses to the attorneys? And then I'll give you folks a chance to review the questions and the proposed responses, and you can take as long as you need.
We're ready whenever everyone else is, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Let me mention one thing. On both of these responses, in my signature block, I will change the title to District Court Judge. I changed it in the header. I didn't catch it in the signature block, so I will make that change so that it will read District Court Judge. All right, Mr. Orman, what is the people's position? Let's take the deliberations question number 3 first. What's the people's position with respect to the court's proposed response?
We agree with the court's proposed response.
All right, Mr. King, let's take that same question. What is the defense's position with respect to the court's proposed response?
Our position, Judge, is that you combine the last two sentences into one sentence that would read, instruction 22 informs you about the defendant's theory of the case? Answer their question about whether it's informative or not without commenting on or detracting from that instruction, as it is one of the court's instructions.
Yeah, I like it better the way I have it drafted. So the request is denied. They're asking what instruction they should take from it. They're specifically asking about that. They're not just saying that it reads or that it feels informative. It's a two-part question. They're saying it feels informative rather than instructional, and then in addition, they're asking what instruction are we to take from it? And if you remember, these are the instructions of law that I've been talking to them about, and I'm sure they're looking at it and going, well, what's the instruction of law here? So I think that's what the question is going to, and I think it's in order to provide a complete answer and a clear answer, I need to tell them this is not an instruction of law. This is to inform them about the defendant's theory of the case. So I will leave it as is, but the objection is noted. Let's move on to the other question. What's the people's position with respect to the proposed response as to deliberations question number 4? Mr. Orman?
We agree with the court's proposed response.
All right, Mr. King, what's your position on the proposed response to deliberations question number 4?
I agree with the court's response as well.
All right, great. So the only changes I will make to the, and for the record, I am putting my responses on my letterhead, and before I provided the initial or the answer to the last question number 2, I didn't catch that in my block signature it says Chief Judge, and now I've changed it to District Court Judge because I think that's the way it should be done for purposes of this case. So I did change the header, but I missed it in the part of right under my signature line for my title. So I will change that. Other than those 2 changes, though, these will be provided to the jury as drafted. Okay? All right. The court will be in recess. Thanks, everyone.